Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
Selection Sunday came and went, and no date to the dance for the Crimson Tide. Good evening, everybody, and welcome in to Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm Gary Harris, and tonight we are drinking ice-cold Pepsi Cola, presented by Buffalo Rock. And now let's talk about Alabama, Rodney, and the question obviously is, should the Crimson Tide have been in the field of 68? I mean, that's a question that's been kicked around, and we've talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. But I know most people around here feel like Alabama should be a part of that big tournament.
Well, yeah, and again, we're a little biased, I know, Gary, and I know that it was a very difficult decisions that had to be made, certainly by the committee who made the selections. But, you know, sometimes, Gary, you start hearing all these things about RPI and all these other things, and where does sometimes, you know, judgment come in, or discretion, or common sense?
I don't know. Everything's done so much based on RPI and strength of schedule, and you're right, Rodney. I'll say what I've said all along. The bottom line, in my opinion, is this. If the non-conference schedule, and I understand it's important, I'm not saying that, but if it's going to outweigh everything you do in the Southeastern Conference, winning 12 games against 4 losses during the regular season, winning a game in the tournament for 13 total conference wins, if what you do in the non-conference outweighs that, then the Southeastern Conference is in trouble. I mean, that's all I'm going to say about it. The SEC, you know, has to be concerned as a league that a team that finished 1 game behind Florida for the regular season conference championship, won the Western Division going away, won 21 games total, that's not enough to get into the NCAA tournament? Well, if that's the case, and I guess it is, then the Southeastern Conference needs to take that as a slap, not just to Alabama, but to the league in general. You know, a lot of people look at it as Georgia getting in over Alabama. I don't really see it that way, although the Tide did win twice against the Dogs in 6 days. There's no way to deny that. I just think Alabama should have gotten in, regardless of who else got in or didn't get in. I think there should have been a place for them in that field of 68, but it did not happen, and that's just the reality.
Well, you should have been politicking for Alabama, because you did a great job.
You know, I admire Coach Grant because he is a stand-up guy, takes the high road, but in my opinion, I wish he had politics just a little bit, the way that Mike Davis did at UAB, the way that Mark Fox did at Georgia. He said, you know, Grant said, we can't worry about that. We just got to go play basketball. But those teams got in and Alabama did not. Well, as we said, you know, a lot of people see it as Georgia getting in over Alabama. On Monday, Florida coach Billy Donovan weighed in exactly on that subject.
Alabama had more wins against the East than Georgia did, and they beat Georgia twice in head-to-head competition. I just thought, not that they should have got in over Georgia. I think Georgia should be in. I thought Alabama should have got in with they won 13 league games, 12 in the regular season, and 1 in the SEC tournament. They played the team that obviously won the SEC tournament in Kentucky. I just thought they could. But you know what? I'm sure Virginia Tech feels that way, and a lot of other schools are sitting there looking at that too. So I was disappointed.
All right, the NCAA's committee's chairman said a lot of people place emphasis on head-to-head competition, but there were, quote, things with Alabama that didn't stack up compared to other teams. We assume he's talking about Alabama's non-conference schedule. The Tide had some bad losses during that time. And again, I thought what they did in the SEC would be enough to overcome that, but obviously it was not. Well, here's a team that finished, as we said, with 13 conference victories. Rodney, if you count what happened in the SEC tournament, we've already kind of weighed in on it, I guess, but in my opinion, they need to reevaluate the selection formula. I know there's always going to be worthy teams that are left out, but again, it should just be more about, in my opinion, how teams are playing, who they're playing against, and not so much based on an RPI. You know, you can get your RPI and your strength of schedule way up high just by going out and playing a tough pre-conference schedule, whether you win or not. Just go to Duke, just go to Kansas, just go to North Carolina, just go to Syracuse. Heck, it doesn't even matter if you win or not. Your strength of schedule will be so high, it looks like it'll get you in. I just think that the common sense factor needs to come back into it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I said earlier, Gary. I think, you know, where's that in the mix? It doesn't seem to be in the equation.
And, of course, another thing that can be questioned, I guess, is the non-conference schedule. Should Coach Grant reevaluate how he schedules? But I would argue in most years, when you play Providence, when you play Seton Hall, when you play Purdue, when you play Oklahoma State, all those games away from home, Iowa, those are normally going to be really good basketball teams. It worked out this year that most of them, other than Purdue, weren't great teams, but that's through no fault of Anthony Grant's. Again, when you schedule those teams on paper, that looks like a pretty tough schedule.
Yeah, you know, when I was looking at it before I came on, Gary, you look at, you know, Seton Hall and Iowa. I know Alabama had that disastrous week there when they lost to those two teams as well as St. Joe's, and of course St. Joe's did get in. I guess they won their conference tournament, but you know, those were losses that certainly, you know, did not help Alabama's cause by any means.
All right, Coach Grant though was asked about his scheduling philosophy, and this is what he had to say.
Obviously, you've got to reevaluate what you're doing. To me, it's you know, the process in terms of NCAA selection appears to be a moving target. So you've got to try to evaluate what you need to do and how you need to do it. But that's something that we'll look at the end of the season.
Well, earlier you heard Billy Donovan taking up for Alabama. So did Kentucky coach John Calipari Saturday after his team waxed the Tide over at the SEC tournament in Atlanta.
I think they should be in. I think Georgia should be in. I mean, what happens is, you know, they talk the strength of a league and all that. Wait a minute. These teams have beaten good people. They've played well all year, and they deserve to be in the tournament. I mean, you know, I'm looking at it saying we should get 6 teams in. I don't understand. Well, why would they get 6? The league is good. Look at us. Look at Florida.
Coach Grant's stance, as we alluded to earlier, was simply we can't control if we get in or not. And I already said, Rodney, I think he should have politicked more. But you know what? He's a better man than me because he is not that kind of guy. He's going to let the teams play, stand for itself. And I tell you what, I think this group next year will come back more determined to take it out of the committee's hands and just flat out have a great year from start to finish and get in and not have to worry about it.
Well, and again, we'll be in his 3rd year, Gary, and I think we saw great progress. Kind of look at the positives, you know, at this point, Gary. I think, you know, you look at what he did this year. They overachieved. As you mentioned, they won 12 games in the SEC. Nobody thought that would happen. They won the West. So I think there's a lot of positives to take from this season to build upon for next year.
All right, let's update what Alabama's doing in the NIT because we know they did not make it into the NCAA tournament, as we've already talked about ad nauseum, but it looks like they've got bad intentions in the NIT. They are clocking Coastal Carolina right now late in the first half. Cliff Ellis's team, now in fairness to Coastal Carolina, Chanticleers playing without several of their top players. Eligibility issues there. Always seems to be some issues that follow Cliff Ellis wherever he goes, but Alabama taking advantage, leading 34-18. We'll have highlights and post-game reaction tonight on the news at 10 o'clock. Well, still to come on TITV, Rodney will have his weekly football recruiting roundup. You don't want to miss that. But up next, the Alabama football team opens spring practice next Monday. What's the biggest area of concern that the Tide will be looking to improve upon? We'll discuss next on the program. And we'll be getting your phone calls and answering your emails. The number you need to get in touch with us, 205-348-9882, or just 348-WVUA for short, or email us, TITV@WVUATV.com. You're watching the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only Tider Insider TV. Welcome back, everybody. We've been talking about basketball and why not. March Madness is here. Alabama not in the NCAA tournament, but looking to make a run to New York City and Madison Square Garden for the NIT. But, Rodney, it's also the time that spring football is right around the corner. In fact, it's less than a week away. Tide gets underway next Monday, and always spring is a time to evaluate, also to make some decisions on where you stand with your team, get ready for fall. And, of course, for coaches, it's also to look at what you've lost and see where you need to plug in for some holes. And Alabama, the big question, obviously, whenever there's a quarterback opening, that is what is going to get most of the attention. Greg McElroy, 2-year starter, is gone. A.J. McCarron and Phillip Sims, the heir apparents. So let's start there with quarterback.
They're both very talented, Gary. You know, without saying that we know the biggest drawback's just absolutely no experience. But, you know, two very talented guys. I don't know if Alabama's had 2 talented guys this talented and this young at the same time in quite a while. But A.J. McCarron, certainly Phillip Sims, 2 of the best young quarterback prospects in the country. And, you know, they both can throw the ball, Gary. Both can do things. Both can move around. And, you know, it's just a matter of getting them some experience. And, you know, I think this spring's going to be very, very valuable to both of those guys. I would not be surprised. And, again, I know we're jumping way ahead of the gun. I don't think there's going to be a decision on this, you know, quarterback battle probably until the first game. And I still believe that as the season goes on, both guys will probably play.
Even with the losses, Ingram going early, Julio Jones going early, Darius going early, there's still a lot of great football players coming back, but some other areas. We mentioned quarterback. Also, left tackle is vital to your offense. James Carpenter, another 2-year starter going to the NFL. Who's got the leading position to take that?
You know, I think when you're looking at it, Gary, certainly I think you look at a guy like Alfred McCullough, and he's a guy that, you know, he's been in the program, and I think he'll probably get first crack at that left tackle spot, but everybody pretty much assumes that Aaron Douglas, the junior college transfer, who played at Tennessee, started as a redshirt freshman there in 2009 at right tackle. He'll get a crack certainly this spring, and most people believe, you know, he'll probably be the guy eventually.
And we know Mark Ingram's leaving, but running back seems to be in good hands with Trent Richardson, Eddie Lacy and company. But there is some concern with Darius gone up front and an Alabama defensive line last year that just wasn't very effective passing the quarterback, rushing the quarterback, I should say. Courtney Upshaw finished strong. What's the defensive line looking like?
Well, it's going to be interesting. You know, obviously they have Josh Chapman back, have some other guys, you know, a lot of guys that have been developing in the program like Brandon Moore and some other guys. But, you know, you look at the newcomers. That's who everybody really wants to talk about. Jesse Williams probably going to line up at one of the defensive end spots. He was the #1 junior college player in the country, obviously the #1 defensive lineman in the country. Quentin Dial was one of the top 5 junior college defensive linemen in the country. He'll probably play inside and outside, so we'll see how that goes. But certainly, you know, those are 2 guys that will upgrade, I think, the defensive line, and they're going to be interesting to watch. I know a lot is expected of both of those guys.
All right, coming up, we are going to be talking recruiting, and also we're going to be getting to your phone calls and emails. You know, hope you're flipped over for us for the Tider Insider TV. Then you can flip back to the basketball game. 205-348-9882 is the number, or you can email us, titv@wvuatv.com. We're coming right back with Rodney's recruiting wrap up right after this. Welcome back to Tider Insider TV, everybody. Time to talk football recruiting for 2012 and beyond. Let's start with an outstanding in-state prospect, Alphonse Taylor. Look at the size, 6'6", 335 pounds, out of a good program, Mobile Davidson. But the thing you notice when you look at this young man is 6'6", 335, but he carries it well. I mean, he looks college ready.
And moves fairly well too, Gary. And you look at him, and he's been very successful on the defensive line in high school. A guy that, you know, quite honestly could end up on the offensive line on this level. So, you know, we'll see. But, you know, one thing that's really interesting about Alphonse is he won't tell you who's offered him. He won't tell you who's recruiting him. He's kind of keeping all those things to himself.
You know, Alabama's always recruited the Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Maryland area a little bit, but it seems like with much more frequency under Nick Saban, and the Tide's back up there again this year. Yeah,
offensive lineman Brian Gaya is, you know, a guy, Gary, that Alabama's evaluating right now. I know he's been down here previously, loves Alabama. He's been down here on a visit. He's got several offers, and he's going to come back down for A-Day, I think. And he's got a teammate, Cyrus Jones, one of the most electric players, you know, in that part of the country, certainly. And I know Cyrus really likes Alabama quite a bit, and he's got 20-plus offers, and I think Alabama's got a great shot at Cyrus. He'll be down here for A-Day as well.
Back in state, another player from that talent-heavy Panhandle area, the South Alabama area, T.J. Yeldon out of Daphne, state champion a year ago. I mean, this is one of those young men. He's got speed. He's got some breakaway ability. You can do a lot of different things with him. Versatile running back.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head. A lot of people think he's one of the more versatile running backs in the country because of his ability not only to run, Gary, but his ability as a receiver out of the backfield. Line him up outside and let him catch some balls. He's, you know, over 1,000 yards the last 2 seasons, as well as, you know, upwards of 500 yards receiving each of those years. He's an outstanding player, has a lot of offers. And, you know, right now, according to one of the coaches there on his staff, Mike Vickery, assistant coach there, you know, it's probably going to be a decision between Alabama and Auburn, but it's a long way off. And, you know, Alabama's recruiting a lot of running backs, so we'll see what happens.
And his teammate, defensive end Ryan Anderson, some compare him to Courtney Upshaw, and Alabama really likes him.
Kind of come on, Gary. He's a guy that has played with his hand down, meaning playing in the dirt, defensive lineman type. And, you know, this spring they're going to stand him up. Alabama wants to see him, you know, see what kind of ability he has playing in space. And I think once the evaluation period is over in May, you know, it's a possibility he could receive an offer from Alabama. But he does have several offers: Auburn, Florida State, Tennessee, among others.
Okay, good recruiting update as always. Phone calls are waiting, so let's get started with LD over in center. LD, welcome into the tournament. Welcome into the program. Thinking basketball tournament. Go ahead.
Hello. I just wanted to go back to basketball. I know it's not as strong as football is, and getting bowl games, but I've kind of let it get under my skin here the last few days with Billy Donovan and everyone speaking up. I think that Alabama deserved to be in that tournament.
Well, dude, we've already made our feelings clear on it. We agree with you. We think Alabama should have been in, but you know how this goes. If you wanted Alabama to get in, you're probably saying they should have gotten in. If you didn't want them to get in, then from your perspective, you know, they should not have gotten in. So, you know, in fairness to the committee, it is a tough job. I've said I thought Alabama should have been in easily, but you know what? Next year, like I said, you've got to go ahead and take care of it and not put yourself in this position. You know, start strong and finish strong, and just take it out of the committee's hands. And I think that'll be the thing that Alabama wants to do next year, is just not leave any doubt. But it's disappointing that they didn't make it in, no doubt about it. All right, let's talk to Shane over in Oxford. Shane, welcome into the program. Shane, you there? All right, Shane wanting to know about Barry Sanders Jr., a great running back out of Oklahoma. His dad, of course, played all those years in the National Football League, one of the great all-time running backs with the Detroit Lions. His dad went to Oklahoma State, so obviously they're a player, but Alabama's involved too.
Well, you know, first of all, Gary, and I know a lot of people refer to him as Barry Sanders Jr., and he's actually not Barry Sanders Jr. He's Barry Sanders, but he's not a junior. So, and he doesn't like to be called junior, so we'll just kind of put that out there. But anyway, he's a great back, no question about that. One of the top running backs in the country. He's already made an unofficial visit to Alabama twice. So he's kind of understands the program here a little bit, and I think he's very high on Alabama. Alabama and Florida State, possibly his top two right now, Gary. Again, it's really early, and anytime your father's a legend at a school, like Barry Sanders was at Oklahoma State, you certainly never count them out. And I'm not doing that. You know, they could be the leader for all we know. But I do believe, talking to people, that Alabama and Florida State possibly are his top two at this point.
All right, time to take a timeout. We'll be back with more phone calls right after this. Well, Rodney and I outfitted again tonight in original elephant wear from the Locker Room, a Tuscaloosa tradition for 47 years, located on the University of Alabama Strip. We'd like to thank the Locker Room for this great original elephant wear, and we would absolutely encourage you to go by Monday through Saturday, see Alex and Rush and all the other great folks there at the Locker Room, or check them out online. You can browse their inventory of original elephant wear shirts, ties, outerwear, all kinds of good stuff, plus great line of suits, of course, and much more at the Locker Room since 1964, a Tuscaloosa tradition. All right, right back to the phone calls. Marquise in Tuscaloosa is with us. Marquise, welcome into the program.
How you doing, Gary?
Doing well.
Yes, I wanted to know, with the Robert Green returning for his senior year, and then you have Mark Barron and Robert Lester, those guys back in the safety, will Clinton Dix receive a red shirt?
Good question. I think Alabama, it looks loaded at the safety position, but I don't think they brought in Clinton Dix to redshirt. That's just my feeling, Marquise. I think the young man's going to play somewhere. If it's special teams, he's going to be out on the field.
Very, very talented. Kind of like Drake Kirkpatrick in the sense that, you know, when he came in as a freshman, played a lot on special teams, and then kind of inherited the position this past year, or earned the position certainly. But you look at Clinton Dix, I think you would certainly see him play, as Gary mentioned, on special teams, and, you know, maybe play some, you know, from scrimmage. But I think, Gary, that, you know, he's a guy that when you look at him, he will inherit one of those positions next year.
Yeah, Ron, I think the feeling on this kind of young man is, and you have to see, but I think that they feel the talent level such it's going to have a hard time keeping him 4 years anyway. So you don't redshirt guys like Clinton Dix. Okay, CB, let's talk with you, my friend. What you got on your mind tonight?
You know, I guess it's been enough said, but 68 teams, you know, I'm dumb as a brick, but this committee, you know, what planet are they from? Go ahead.
Well, you know, again, we have discussed it all night. We think Alabama should have been in. I agree with you. If you just look at it, is Alabama one of the 68 best teams in the country? The answer is absolutely yes. But it's not. We know that. It's not about the 68 best teams. You've got automatic bids. It's really 37 at-large spots. And, you know, there were some others. I guess if you want to take solace in the fact Virginia Tech didn't get in, Colorado didn't get in, St. Mary's didn't get in. I know that doesn't make Alabama fans feel any better, but there were some other schools that had legitimate gripes as well, and that will be the case every year, CB. Like I said, next year you just hope Alabama is in a position where it's not even debatable, and the only thing you're debating is how high a seed will Alabama be. Email time for us here on the program. And from Jim in Northport wants to know, is Anthony Grant a candidate for the Georgia Tech coaching job? Well, Jim, I guess he is a candidate based on what we've been hearing from the Georgia Tech perspective. If you're asking, do I think he's a candidate? No, because I think to be a candidate, you have to have interest. I think Anthony Grant is going to stay at Alabama.
Well, I would agree with that, certainly, Gary. He's just getting his program rolling here. He's in the SEC. I mean, where would you stack up at Georgia Tech? I know it's a great city in terms of being in Atlanta. You probably have, some great opportunities to recruit. But, personally, I would think Alabama's job right now is better.
And he's got a lot of unfinished work here. He's done a great job, but let's be honest. He's 2 years on the job. He's yet to get the team into the NCAA tournament. So, yeah, there's still a lot to do here at Alabama, no doubt about it. It starts with recruiting. They're recruiting well. Another email real quick. This one is from Trey in West Blockton, talking about the 2013 recruit Eddie Prince.
Well, he's a talented quarterback. Let me tell you, Trey, but there's a lot of talented young quarterbacks out there in that class. And, he's certainly giving Alabama a lot of consideration here early on. But, again, it's a long way off.
All right. Thanks for the phone calls and the emails. Coming up, an update on Alabama's NIT game against Coastal Carolina. That's next on Tider Insider TV. Alabama disappointed to not be in the NCAA tournament and taking it out on Coastal Carolina right now. At halftime, the Tide on top, 38-22. And don't forget, if you missed any of tonight's show, there's one place you can go to watch it anytime you want, WVUATV.com. Our John Huddleston will have the telecast posted later on tonight on the internet. So, for Rodney Orr and our entire Titv crew, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week with a spring football report. Take care.